Okay, so let's talk about volume profile. We've already discussed what the purpose of volume profile is. It is simply a map showing you potentially where it is that boss fights could be waiting at, because you have to keep this in mind. You have to keep this in mind, and I told you guys this when we first started discussing what it is that a boss fight is. So the boss fight in this game is a overwhelming force, okay? But he is not aggressive. So let's write this down. The boss fight, oh, hold on one second. Okay. The boss fight in the game is a it is a overwhelming force. I think that's how you spell overwhelming. I swear I graduated high school. It is a overwhelming force. Okay? Is that how you spell overwhelming? That doesn't look right. Whatever, you get the point. The boss fight in this game of trading is an overwhelming force. However, he is not aggressive. He can be aggressive, but he is not aggressive. What do I mean by that? He has his own objectives and his own list of shit to do. He's not worried about you at all, right? He's chasing bigger things, bigger XP pools. Like, bro, I mean, he's max level. Like, think about it. When you're max level in a video game, you don't care about all the other little plebs, right? All the other players, right? You're humble because you've been there at one point, but you don't care about any of those players. The only thing you care about is what the next bigger and better thing is, right? And the other thing you care about is helping specific groups of players level up. That is what the boss fight does, okay? So we'll write here, he worries about his own objectives and he helps other groups of smaller players level up, okay? And essentially what I'm saying is when this boss fight gets ready to move, when we run into this boss fight, you do not want to be on the other end of his table if he completes his mission of changing the narrative. So that takes us back to this. He worries about his own objectives. What is the boss fight's objective? His objective is to help change the narrative. That is what the boss fight's objective is. He is just looking to help change the narrative from one narrative to another narrative. That is all he does. And he also looks to help other groups of smaller players level up. That is literally all he does, okay? So essentially, if you can find out where it is that this guy is, you can use his overwhelming force and his overwhelming influence and capitalize off of it. So what do I mean by capitalize off of it? Remember before when I told you that the boss fight lets everybody come into the room to have their go at him? Well, if they're not successful in that, by the time he charges up his spirit bomb, there is no escape. All of the players that were in the room against him are going to get wiped out. Bro, he popped his domain expansion. He pops his domain expansion, and everybody who wasn't on his side and everybody who wasn't his friend gets hit with a 100% critical hit. They get hit with a domain expansion and they get wiped. Okay? And all those players who got wiped were essentially just XP. So now there's a bunch of XP laying around in this boss fight room. Guess who gets to walk around and pick up all the leftover XP inside of this boss fight room since you were on his side? You do. You get to walk around and pick up the scraps, right? So that's essentially what we want to do. Let's look at what a volume profile is now that we understand what it is that the boss fight does and how to find him within a chart. Okay, so first, in order to understand this, let's first look at what a volume profile is. Now, for those of you who are about to ask, well, how do I get that on my chart? Like I said, when we first started these videos, I think it's in the second video, you have to upgrade your TradingView subscription from free to their essential plan, I think it is. In fact, we can check together. In order for you to get the volume profile that we are about to look at, you have to upgrade from TradingView's free platform to at least their essential platform. So I pay $16.95 a month in order to get access to the volume profile. Okay, that is what you need access to. I am looking to upgrade to premium so I can get access to something else in here, and I want to talk about that eventually with you guys at some point. But for right now, you just need to get this one, okay? Now, if you can't buy it just yet, that is completely fine. Still follow along with this video. You can still take notes. You can still draw out the volume profile on your notebook in the form of a picture and follow along. You don't need it right now. If you can't afford it, that is fine, okay? Still learn about it. Okay, so let's look at what a volume profile is. So, to find the volume profile, if you have the subscription, what you're going to want to do is come over here to the left side of your toolbar, and you're going to want to scroll down until you find this one right here. We are going to be using the fixed range volume profile today. There is a anchored volume profile and a couple other volume profiles that we can eventually go over. And if that's something you want to learn about, look in the description below and come join my Discord and let's discuss about it together inside of a call. Or you can book a one-on-one with me and I can hold your hand through the whole process. Just use the links below. I have a one-on-one link and I have a Discord link. It's completely free. Yeah. So look, let's look at the volume profile. And in fact, I've prepared a chart. When you set up a volume profile, and we'll go over how to set it up in a second, so just hold on. When you set up a volume profile, it will look something like this, okay? Now, every map you play on, and remember what maps are? So anything you decide to trade is its own map. Every map you play on is going to have different settings for its volume profile, and you'll need to adjust them in order to accommodate that map type, okay? But for right now, we're only going to focus on gold because that's the map that I like to play on. So this is kind of what your volume profile will look like. We are going to keep this very simple, and this goes very in depth, and there are a lot of people who will tell you different things, but I'm going to tell you the only thing you need to care about, okay? Okay, the only things you need to care about when opening your volume profile. So I had to fix my settings there for a second. Okay, so the only thing you need to care about when looking at a volume profile, I have to go take a fucking shit. I'll be right back. I'm not gonna deep dive into too much of what this is. I'll just give you the quick explanation and then the video game explanation and then the only two things that we care about, okay? I just want you to understand though that this volume profile goes a lot deeper and you can learn a lot more about it with other videos on YouTube, or if that's something else that you guys want to see me dive into a deep more with a bit of a simpler understanding using video game terminology, then just comment it below. Comment volume profile down in the comments so I know that's a separate video that you guys want me to deep dive into this further on and how to use it in our trading, okay? But if that's not something you want to hear me blabber about, just understand that there are other videos on YouTube that discuss this in a way more in-depth, nerdy fashion than I ever could, okay? With that being said, let's discuss what this even is. What the volume profile is, it is just a measurement between prices, and all it shows you is the value at a set percentage. Okay, that is all it is. So you set a percentage. The most used percentages are 70% or 68%. And then it is the value between point A to point B. And then it takes 68 or 70% or whatever percent you decide to set. And the best way I can describe it is it just clumps it up into these little clusters, so into these little bars. And that's important because what it shows you then are the areas where the villains and heroes were not that interested in fighting at. And the reason that those areas are important is because if the heroes and villains ever move back to those areas, they're not going to be that interested in fighting there, and they're going to go the other way, potentially, okay? What this also shows you, since it shows you those areas, the most important area that this volume profile shows you is something known as the point of control. What the point of control is, which is right here, it's this little yellow line I've marked up. What the point of control is between that area that you are measuring. The point of control is showing you where heroes and villains have done the most amount of fighting. It is where they have fought the most back and forth for control over the narrative, okay? It is also the area where you will see the most support and resistance. It is also the area where you will see a big boss decide to step in and either help the heroes push the narrative or help the villains push the narrative, okay? That is what the point of control does, and that is what the volume profile is. Now that we understand those two things, okay, I've explained what it is in trading terminology and I've explained what it is in video game lingo. Now that we understand what those things are, the only things that we are interested in are the point of control. The reason we are interested in the point of control is because this is the area that the heroes and villains will always return back no matter how far away they get. The reason they will always return back to this area is because that is where they did the most amount of fighting. And you have to understand, in this game, the only thing heroes and villains are interested in doing are fighting. So they're going to be interested in the area where they did the most amount of fighting, okay? So essentially what we want to use the point of control for is a target. Most people like to use the point of control to take trades off of. So like they'll wait for it to like bounce or break. I don't do any of that shit. In my personal experience, it's just a whole lot of guessing, and like it just feels like gambling, in my opinion. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It probably does. Just personally for me, it doesn't work. The only thing I use the point of control for is a target. When price moves away from it, I look to target it. I just target it, bro. I target it, okay? Just know that. So we're interested in the point of control. The next two things we're going to be interested in is the farthest area from the point of control, which is going to be down here. It is going to be the smallest, depending on your settings, okay? It is going to be the smallest little cluster. So the smallest little bar out of all of these bars, it will be the smallest one. It don't even got to be the smallest one. It is just the one that is all the way at the end, right? We are going to be interested in that. The next area we're going to be interested in is the smallest or the farthest one from the point of control on the other side. So we have three things here. Let's discuss them, and then we'll look at price and how price pertains to all of these areas. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so what we have here are three things. We have one, a target, which is the big yellow box, which is the point of control. We know why the point of control is a target, right? We already know why. What are these other two areas that we're looking at here? Stick with me. Since we are measuring from point A to point B, these two, this red and green box, are going to be the areas where price is most likely to fall off. Now let me break that down in video game language. These two areas, this green and red box, are going to be the areas where we most likely find resistance or support for villains and heroes. These two areas are going to be the most likely spots where a big boss battle decides to step in and either change the narrative or help out a specific group of players. Okay, so now let's discuss how that happens. And dude, I'm gonna show you, bro. You'll see, bro. If this, let me get a better color. 1 second. So say this white line is price, okay? And we're going to do this from the perspective of a hero narrative first. So the narrative is a hero narrative. We are moving up, okay? We're making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, and higher lows. If price, or if the narrative suddenly finds its way coming down because the narrative has switched from heroic to villainous, you need to understand that this area, this green box that you mark up, is going to be the area where a big player is going to step in. In video game terms, it is most likely going to be a boss room that ends up spawning in once those group of people reach that area. Once we then reach that area, since we've essentially run out of heroes to defend this level. Well, how did we run out of heroes to defend this level? Okay, look, bro, you need to understand this. Don't overcomplicate this. I could go really in depth on this, but just ignore all your extra noise in your head. Just understand this. This green box is going to be the area where a boss battle room most likely spawns in at, okay? It is going to be the boss battle room where a hero boss battle most likely spawns in at. And it's going to look to help the heroic players regain control of the narrative. And now, since a boss battle has entered the game, they're thinking on a bigger scale. They're thinking on a bigger picture. They're thinking longer moves, stronger moves, bigger moves. Where is it that the most amount of fighting has taken place between the villains and the heroes? At the point of control. So this big boss battle is not interested in fighting all of the little plebs here. The big boss battle is interested in fighting the other boss battles at the point of control. Okay? Now, I'll be honest, it is a little bit different from what I'm describing it. However, I'm trying to break this down in a way where it makes sense for you. Okay? So just get it in your head that since we've reached this extreme area, is what I call it. It is a extreme area of support. It is a area where a boss battle is most likely to spawn in and drive a narrative the other direction. And once that boss battle spawns in and starts driving the narrative the other direction, it is going to look to target the strongest point on the volume profile. Since this is the most extreme point, it is going to look to target the second most extreme point, which is either the point of control or this extreme resistance area. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully that gotta make sense, bro. Okay, don't overcomplicate it. Now, let's look at it from the villain perspective. So now price is moving down, okay? If price ever finds its way back up here to this extreme area of resistance, this is an area where a villainous boss battle is most likely to step in and help drive the narrative back down, okay? And what this villainous boss battle will look to target is either the point of control, or it will look to target the second most extreme area, which is this extreme area of support. Okay, that's all you need to understand. 9 times out of 10, if price is this high up, it is only going to target the point of control. But that's something else we can go into in a more in-depth video. But that is all you need to understand. Okay, does that make sense? Now, just because we come back to these areas does not mean we are going to bounce off and we're just going to shoot the other way. That is not what that means. Get that out of your head. The thing that is most important paired with the volume profile is context. I've already told you how to read context. You find the overall trend, who has the overall narrative, and then I've showed you how to zoom in to that overall narrative and read the battle. I showed you how to read the market structure. You have to find the context, and given the context, when we get back to this area, we then want to make a decision and wait and see if we're going to get a reaction off of this area. And then we want to look to join the villains once they have proven to us that they are indeed reacting off of this area. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. It'll make more sense when we go to a chart and I break it down. The reason I'm telling you that, though, is because we don't have to bounce off this area. Price can do something like this. It can get back to this area and it'll look like it's gonna go down, and then all of a sudden we get this massive explosion up. Well, the reason that happens is because since this is an extreme area, it is a extreme area of resistance. That means a gigantic amount of power is required in order to break past that. Right? So that is why that will happen. So if you find yourself on the wrong side of the team, on the wrong side of the market, on the wrong side of the battle, you're going to get stomped. The reason this happens is for 2 reasons. Well, it could be for a couple of reasons, but let's keep things simple. The reason this happens is mainly because there actually wasn't a boss fight there that spawned in, or a boss fight spawned in there, and for whatever reason, he decided to leave the fight. And since he left the fight, his aura is no longer on the battlefield. So it's not, the opposing force isn't scared of you anymore. You don't have Madara on the battlefield. He's no longer G-checking all the other sages. So all those sages feel comfortable moving past that point now. And they have to do it with an extreme amount of force because it's an extreme level, right? So does that make sense? Okay, now that we understand that, we can go look at this on a, ooh, let me bring that back. So now that we understand that, we can go look at this on a chart, okay? So going, I just got fucking flashbanged. Oh my fucking God. Yo, you know that fucking baby meme where it's like, I swear that was me just now. That shit was bright as fuck. So, how do we measure a volume profile? Well, first, let's find the narrative. This is overall going down. Here, it was hijacked, but let's not look at that right now. Let's just go back to when this was going down. This was an overall down narrative, right? I mean, you can literally look at it and see it, okay? So how I would measure that is from, I would take so the tool you want is the fixed range volume profile. It is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is the fifth. Is that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is the fifth category down on your toolbar, and then pop that sidebar out and go to fixed range volume profile. What you want to measure is from the very top, the very, very top. So that'll be right here in this example. You want to measure from the very top all the way to where the current candle is at in that overall narrative going down or up. Your volume profile will then pop up. Okay. Now, given what map you're on, and remember, a map is just what you are trading. Given what map you are playing on, this will look very different for you. Have to adjust the settings until it makes sense for that map. For those of you who are on gold, I will give you my settings. Okay. So this is for those of you who are on gold. So to change the settings for the volume profile, you're going to want to double click on it and this little box will pop up. Pause the video and just copy, bro. I'm not gonna go through all this, bro. Just copy it, okay? This is my settings that I use for gold. However, you can experiment with it and figure out what works for you. This is just what works for me because I like to keep things simple and I like to not overcomplicate shiz. Okay? I can sit here and explain to you what all of this means. However, I'm not gonna do that. Okay? If that is a video you want, comment volume profile down in the comments. Or if that's something you want to learn one-on-one with me, look in the description and schedule a one-on-one meeting and hop on my calendar. That or join the Discord. I'm looking to build a community of people who want to help each other. And just come stop by and ask. So look, here are my style settings. Okay, did you pause the video? This other stuff doesn't matter. Okay, so bam, now that you have my settings, what is it we're looking at here? Oh my God, this is perfect. What is it we're looking at here? Here we can see the point of control is right here, right? We can clearly see that this is where the point of control is. Make that line a bit thicker. We like them thick. That is where the point of control is at currently. Keep in mind, these measurements will need to be updated as price continues to move. If you want it to auto update, and not constantly have to like keep remeasuring it, just click extend to right here, and then it will automatically just readjust everything for you. I have it off because I just prefer to like not see it move 24/7. But just know that these areas do adjust themselves and the point of control also moves, right? Because it measures where the most amount of fighting is taking place, okay? But most of the time, the point of control will stay anchored and it will not move. Did we got that? Okay. So remember, the only two things I want to mark up are my point of control. So I want to mark that up as a zone, right? Here's my point of control. Let's turn that yellow. Ooh, I almost thought I wasn't recording for a second. I got scared. I thought I forgot to hit the record button. So the thing I want to mark up is my point of control. And then I just want to mark up the most extreme area away from the point of control, which in this example is going to be this one here. We'll turn it red because it's resistance, right? Bam. And we'll also label it so we understand what it is. It is resistance. Resistance? I think that's how you spell resistance. Yeah, I swear I'm not slow. So that is our resistance. And then here you can kind of see we already reacted off of it actually. And then here we have our, did I write that there or is that, oh, ooh. And then here we have our extreme area of, why does it, am I tripping? Why does this triangle look like lopsided? I don't know, I might be tripping. But here we have our extreme area of, oh my God, bro. Bam. We have our extreme area of support. Yeah, I'm fighting this. We have our extreme area of support here. So we have our extreme area of support and we have our extreme area of resistance. And we also have our point of control, which we know that price is attracted back to. So since price just reacted off of the support, we know that it is most likely going to be attracted back to the point of control, given the context that the narrative switches. Has the narrative switched yet? No, the narrative has not switched, okay? Remember, we're in an overall down narrative. How do we know when a narrative has switched? I think this is an example. When a group of heroes step in, a hero spawn point appears, and when that hero spawn point takes out a group of villains and moves above them, which we can see happened here. We'll put dead V's for dead villains. When a group of villains gets taken out by a candle or a screenshot closing above them, indicating they got their butts handed to them, then what will happen is a group of villains will step in and seek revenge. So we'll type revenge villains here. When that group of revenge villains starts going back down, these guys are looking to take out these guys since they killed these guys here. If they fail to do that and instead the revenge group gets taken out themselves, the narrative has switched. Boom. The revenge spawn point is taken out. So to me, looking at this, the narrative has officially switched. Why? 3 reasons. 1, we reacted off of an extreme area of support. Who do we know sits at extreme areas of support? Boss battles. Boss battles have a lot of influence, okay? That boss then proceeds to push the price up with heroes. Boom. They make a new hero spawn point underneath this new higher low, okay? They then take out a group of villains. Okay, so that group of villains is now dead. After that, a new group of villains step in, looking to seek revenge on this big boss battle and on this group of players who have taken out these villains here. If this revenge spawn point fails, the narrative has officially switched, and basically what that confirms is that this was indeed a boss who was looking to switch the narrative. Because remember, the only people who can switch the narrative are boss battles. How do we know this is a boss battle? Because we are at an extreme level of support where we are most likely going to find a boss battle. Okay? Does that make sense? So now that they have proven to us that they deserve our support and that they are indeed looking to take the battle to wherever it is they want to end it, whether they reach the point of control or whether villains decide to step in and they regain control of the narrative somehow. I want to be on the team of the heroes at this point in time reading this, right? Because it is backed by a proven hero boss battle spawn point. It is being backed by somebody bigger than me and you, right? Somebody bigger in the game is looking to take out something really big, and I want to be on his team. So now that we understand that, let's see where this goes. Okay, this is the current point in price, so we never got to see where this went, but we can still break this down. This is a perfect example. So let's read this. We can see this overall moved. Oh, let me switch this so you guys can see it. Okay, let's use, should we do black so you guys can, okay. So we can see this is an overall move up, right? And it is backed by a bigger player. However, we start to pivot and go the other way. right? Which shows us that for a while, this was a short-term regain of control from the villains. However, they never moved back below this group, this big boss battle, right? And instead, what happens is they immediately got turned around, and they didn't even make it past this hero spawn point that originally started all this in the first place. So seeing this, I'm still looking to be on the side of the heroes at this point in time. Now you could ask, okay, well, what would you have done? You could ask, okay, well, what would you have done if you were trading at this point in time? So if this was where you were at, if this is where you were at this point in time, and this is what you were seeing, which is a potential narrative switch, what would you have done? Two things. Well, there are a couple things you can do, but for your safety and for your simplicity, you wait. You wait, bro. You wait. You read the story. So here we have the villains bring it down. They take out a group of heroes. This was the group of villains that did it. These group of heroes are now looking to move back up to take out this group of villains who murdered their friends. They failed here. These heroes got wiped. These heroes have spawned in, and they're looking to take out this group of villains. So this group of heroes are now looking to take out this group of villains and this group of villains for murdering their friends. They succeed in taking out the group of villains that murdered their previous friends here. Now they're looking to take out the group of villains who originally started all this murdering, which are these guys and these guys here, which is where we're currently at in time. So what this tells me context-wise is that the heroes still have this support from this big boss battle currently. They still have control of the narrative, even when it was trying to be hijacked by some seller boss battle. It was still to no effort. Does that make sense? Okay, hopefully that makes sense to you. If you still need help, once again, schedule a one-on-one with me so I can hold your hand personally, or go and join our Discord and come in and ask questions, okay? So ultimately where I'm looking to take this is back up to this point of control when I start trading next week, because currently it's Friday and the markets have closed. And that's another important thing. The markets have closed on a Friday in favor of the heroes, which is very important, okay? Because usually on Fridays we dump off, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. Okay, so now that we understand that, let's look at the narrative from a seller's perspective. And what I mean by that is we just looked at a narrative where we reacted off of an extreme area of support going up. Let's look at a example where we react off of an extreme area of resistance going down. Okay, so let's remove this. So looking at this, I can see that this, and it doesn't matter. So some of you might have the question of like, where do I start the measurement? Like, I don't want to measure this whole leg, right? I don't need that much. I mean, you can, and it will work, but I don't need that much personally. I just pick a point, bro. I don't overthink it. Here's where, for me, this is where the narrative started, and this is where it ended before it pivoted the other way. So I'm gonna measure up that where that started to that area where it pivoted. Okay. Hopefully that simplifies that for you. So what we can mark up now are our extreme support, and then we can mark up our extreme resistance, and then we can mark up our extreme, well, not our extreme, we can mark up our point of control. Okay, so you could probably already see it. Do I even need to explain this? We came into this extreme area of resistance. A boss battle is most likely to step in here at this point in time because it is on the extreme end of things. The only people capable of changing the narrative are boss battles, are big players in the game. They're bigger than me and you, okay? So at this point in time, there is most likely going to be a villainous boss battle room that spawns in here. Okay? We can see the overall narrative is going up. The only people capable of changing a narrative are boss battles. A boss battle is most likely to spawn in on an extreme area of a volume profile. Okay, so knowing that, what we want to then wait for is for this extreme area of resistance to prove itself and show us that there is indeed a boss battle that has stepped in here and they're helping to try to change the narrative. So how do we do that? We read what is going on inside of the market structure. Here we see we have gotten here, I really want to change this color so you guys can see. Hold on 1 second, guys. I'm trying to get like a color that's gonna like easily show up for you guys. Okay, I think that's just pretty bright. Okay, what we were saying. Here we can see a group of sellers have spawned in up here because this proceeds to move down. Then a group of buyers spawn in here because this proceeds to move up. How do we know it moves up? There's a up candle, right? We can literally see it going up, where it was then stopped right here inside of that same extreme area, by the way. So this is a double rejection inside of the same area. And then they were pushed down again, where then this moved up once more and then back down. So now that we have that marked up, let's read what went on in terms of video games. So what happened was here, coming out of this extreme area where a boss battle most likely stepped in at, which would have been here. So we'll write, oh, I dropped my pen. We'll write V spawn / boss spawn. So V spawn stands for villain spawn, okay? And H spawn will stand for hero spawn, okay? So this is the first, sorry guys, I'm all over the place. This is the first area where the battle between heroes and villains made contact with that extreme area of resistance. We then got pushed out of that area. So this spawn point here is most likely where this boss spawned in at. It is the last high to leave the extreme area of resistance or support before it ultimately continues to move. So this here was the last spawn point to leave this area. Okay, now that makes sense, but it kind of doesn't, because you would say, well, wouldn't this be the last thing to leave the area because it was the last thing to touch it? Yes, but no. This is the last thing to touch it, but you see how the body of the candle or the screenshot didn't close inside of the zone? Does that make sense now? So this was the last thing to touch this area before it ultimately got pushed away. Okay? So in this example, it is the last high to touch the area before we get that push away. So we get the villains that spawn in here at that extreme area of resistance. We then have a group of buyers spawn in right here. We then have a group of buyers spawn in right here. So we'll write B spawn we'll write B spawn. This is just a B spawn. It's not a boss spawn. So we had this group of buyers spawn in right here, and we'll make them blue. Okay. Once these group of buyers spawn in, they attempt to move back up to take out this group of villains who have pushed down out of this extreme zone. Okay. But to little of their effort, it doesn't mean that they can't do it, but to little of their effort, they weren't able to do it. They came in contact again with that group of villains and they were immediately pushed away. We can see here on this candle, they were immediately pushed away from that area. The reason that most likely happened is because there is an extreme force here flexing his aura on everybody in the room, okay? He was waiting here passively. For these heroes to run into him so that he can G-check them and like tell them to get lost, basically. Does that make sense? I know that was a little extreme, but hopefully that makes sense. These group of heroes are getting G-checked right now, bro. So since we have this hero spawn here, if this hero spawn gets moved past, that essentially wipes this spawn point out for these heroes. A new group of heroes will then spawn in at a new low, and they will attempt to move back up and get revenge. They will look to get revenge for these guys here that were wiped out. Well, who wiped those guys out? Well, it was these guys originally here. So they're looking to get revenge for this spawn point, okay? So if they start moving up and they don't get there and instead they're immediately turned around, what that means is that a group of villains spawned in. a group of villains have spawned in. This new group of villains are being backed. This new group of villains are being backed by this boss spawning in at this extreme zone where he was patiently waiting to change the narrative, okay? Whether they succeed or not is how much that boss spawn, how much he's willing to aura farm, and how much the villain players are willing to help him. Depends on if they'll be able to change the narrative or not. So this new villain spawn that spawned in, they have officially changed the narrative. If they take out this group of hero, if they take out this hero spawn, which was also the revenge camp, and we'll write R for revenge camp. This was the revenge spawn point. The reason this was the revenge spawn point was because these guys were looking to move back up and get revenge for these heroes who were taken out here. Who took out these heroes? These villains. They were looking to move back up and kill these villains. And instead, they were met by a new force, a new group of villains who are being backed by Madara himself, right? If they succeed in pushing this revenge spawn point back down below their spawn, the narrative is officially switched, which we can see happens here. So the narrative has officially switched from an overall move going up to now potentially, not even potentially, it has switched from an overall move going up to an overall move going down now. So now that we are in an overall move going down, what we want to keep seeing is lower low, lower high, lower low, right? And if I'm looking to join the team of the villains now, I want to look to get in on the next spawn point of villains. Well, where do villains spawn in at? They spawn in at highs, right? So here we had a new group of heroes spawn in and they attempted to move the price up, right? We can see that they're not able to do that. So I'm interested in getting in with the villains at this point in time because they've already proven to me that they've switched the narrative. Now, this boss battle, as long as he stays in the game, he's going to look to target either the point of control or he's going to look to target the extreme support level because that is a person capable of stopping him, right? Right there. As you can see, from that point in time, this proceeded to then drop to the point of control, where they then started to fight. The reason they started to fight here, and we got that reaction like that, was either for two reasons. This boss stepped out of the game at the point of control, or a new boss from the opposite side, so from the hero side, spawned in here and is attempting to switch the narrative at the point of control. So essentially, what's going to happen here at the point of control is we're going to get a lot of support and resistance, okay? Because it's going to be nothing but a bunch of fighting. It's going to be a bunch of going up and down like this. We don't want to be trading anywhere to this, okay? Listen to me, bro, because I'm sorry. I'm upset because I struggle with this a lot myself. When we get anywhere near this point of control and we aren't going up or down and if we get anywhere near this point of control, don't trade it, especially if it's on a higher time frame. Here we are on the 1 hour time frame. The 1 hour time frame holds a lot of influence for day traders. Do not trade if we are at that point of control, okay? Don't do it. Now, is it possible to take trades at this point of control? Absolutely. However, trading is a game of probability and you are not putting the favor in your hand trading at the point of control because one side doesn't have control, right? You want to be choosing a team in this video game. You either want to be on the hero side or the villain side. Well, when we get to the point of control, there is no side to take because they're fighting for who wants control of the overall narrative, okay? So until that happens, you just sit on your hands. So here we can see we get some resistance, and here we see we get some, oh my bad. Here we see we get some support, and here we see we get some resistance. How do we know this is, I can't talk. How do we know this is resistance? Because we come to it and we move away from it, right? And then how do we know this is support? Because we come to it and we move away from it. We come back to this area where we rejected the first time and we reject off of it again. Okay, so this is going to keep happening until one side overpowers the other side. And as we can see here, the person that overpowered the other person was the heroes. The heroes, despite them bringing the narrative all the way down to the point of control. They regained control and they were able to break above that resistance. And now they're taking back control of the narrative and they're looking to take out all of these people who caused them so much pain. So if they're going to continue to move price up, those are the people they're going to be targeting, unless the villains step in and regain control. Does that make sense? Look at that. Look at that. So what did we just see there? The heroes took control from the point of control. They took control from the villains. The villains then proceeded to come in and change the narrative, but ultimately they failed. How do we know they failed? Because they failed to take out the group of heroes who took control of the narrative above that resistance at the point of control where they broke out at. The heroes then hijacked the narrative and took back control, and they proceeded to take out all the people over here who caused them so much pain before. How do we know they took them out? Because above where that boss originally stepped in at, which was here, we can see a candle printed above that point in favor of the heroes. And it moved past that extreme area of resistance. And a new extreme area of resistance was made, by the way. But we're not going to get into that right now. So hopefully that makes sense, okay? The volume profile can get very complicated. However, I just showed you exactly how to use it. I just showed you exactly how to mark up a volume, how to measure a volume profile range, how to mark up a range. Bro, just click it to where you mark up the overall move and just click it to where you want it, right? From point A to point B in the move. And then after you have the volume profile marked up, mark up the extreme resistance and the extreme support, and then mark up the point of control. If we're anywhere near the point of control, you just wait and sit on your hands until either the villains take over or the heroes take over. If none of them are taking over, don't touch it. Go trade another map, okay? If we're coming out of an area of extreme resistance and they've already proven that they've taken control of the narrative, you want to be on their side, trading to the point of control. If we never make it to the point of control and the buyers are able to re-hijack the narrative back, then it is what it is. Stop trying to force something to go your way. Just read the story and go with the flow of the story. Bro, it is literally as simple as that, okay? I just gave you multiple examples on how you can do that. And this literally keeps happening, right? Like if I were to erase all this, and this is what I was looking at, I would mark up the overall move. I see that overall move. I'm going to measure where that move started to the top of where that move is currently at, which would be here. And then I'm just going to mark up my new extreme zones. It is that simple, okay? It is that simple. So with that being said, we have discussed support and resistance. We have discussed the volume profile and how we can properly use it to take a trade, and how we can use it to be patient and wait, because none of this works if you're not patient, bro. If you break, bro, we haven't even set rules up yet. But if you try to like force some shit and like foresee some shit, none of this works, bro. You cannot trade, you cannot change the hard rules in this trading game. What I just showed you is a hard rule. It does not change. I don't care what anybody else says, bro. These are hard rules. These don't change. This is how this game works, okay? This is how it moves. Can we understand that? Okay, I have been recording for almost an hour. Let's see real quick if I have anything else I need to go over with you guys. So, wow, look at that. So, you have officially learned how the players are moving in the game, what the players are reacting off of, and all of the context behind what is happening. Because, look, that is the most important thing in this, okay? It is the context behind what it is you are seeing. If you don't understand the context of what it is you are looking at, it doesn't matter how a volume profile works. It doesn't matter what a point of control is. It doesn't matter what support and resistance is. If you don't understand how to read the context behind those things, you might as well close the damn video game for that day. You might as well not even trade. You are going to hurt yourself. If you can't get a clear read on context, close the game. Why would you play a game where you're at a disadvantage? Would you play a game without a tutorial? For you smartasses that just said yes, that's probably why you suck, okay? That's why I was dog washing you 5 years ago in Fortnite. Granted, Fortnite didn't have a tutorial. But the point is it took a lot of practice and a lot of context to hit 90s in triple edits, okay? Took a lot of practice and context. You couldn't just hop in and do that shit, you feel me? So now that we understand that, which is the campaign story, liquidity, which is XP, it is objectives, it is what the heroes or the villains are chasing. We have gone over support and resistance, which are just the checkpoints where heroes or villains get turned around at, and it is also the areas where boss battles are most likely to spawn in at and help change the narrative. We have gone over supply and demand, which I didn't say specifically what supply and demand was, but supply and demand are just the spawn points of where the heroes or the villains are spawning in at. We have gone over volume profile as well, which are just it is just the map of where potential bosses are most likely to spawn in at. So we've gone over all of the hard game rules of this game of trading. Now, keep in mind, there are more rules to trading. It goes extremely deep. However, this is a safe space. This is a space where we don't like to overcomplicate things, and we keep things simple and break it down in dumb, me hit rock with stick, and I don't care about building mega awesome overcomplicated car, okay? Trading will be easier and better for you if you keep things simple in that context. Stop trying to be a fucking nerd and overcomplicate everything. And like, I'll tell you why you know what? Actually, we're going to go into that in a psychology video. But I know why it is you're doing that. I know why it is you're trying to overcomplicate trading. Just know that. The next thing we're going to be going over is, in the next act, is player maintenance. In player maintenance, we are going to be discussing how to save player progress, which is just learning how to properly journal impact test. Okay? Because just like in a video game, you need to understand how to practice so that you get better at fighting, right? And the only way you can do that is to go back and review your gameplay. And the only way you can do that is to go back and practice in previous battles, right? Another thing we will be doing in the next act is discussing game update patch notes, which is essentially just news data and how it affects the narratives and how it affects the players for those days, okay? And then the last thing we will be going over in the next act is just feedback. Just me asking for feedback from you guys and just discussing our community and what I want moving forward with this community and my vision and just what it is that I'm trying to build, okay? That is going to be the last episode of Player Maintenance. The Player Maintenance Act is going to be a relatively short one because once again, we're not overcomplicating anything, okay? So with that being said, I'll either see you tomorrow or I'll probably record it right after this. I'm having fun recording these videos, man. I'll be honest. Like, this is extremely fun. I love teaching people, and yeah, I mean, I just love helping people. So once again, if you want some one-on-one help from me specifically, there is a link underneath this video in the description to book a one-on-one call with me where I will then hold your hand and walk you through all your questions and break it down for you in the simplest terms possible. Or if you wouldn't prefer that because you're an introvert or something, which is fine, you can come join the Discord group and connect with like-minded individuals who are only looking to help you. I am looking to build a community of people who just want to help each other. We don't do any gatekeeping over here. We don't gatekeep anything, bro. We are looking to help each other. We are looking to help each other upgrade, and we're looking to level up. And let's be honest, we're just looking to make some money so that we can better our lives, okay? That is the kind of community I am looking to build. I want us to just be worried about us. We don't care about all the other noise and all the other whatever anybody is saying, okay? It is just our house and it is just our family. That is all. That is what it is I'm trying to build with you guys here, okay? So with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video, either tomorrow or right after this. We'll see. Peace out.